Conference, your source for JVM knowledge.
Hello everyone. This is a talk about Micronaut performance. Just a little bit about me. I'm Miguel Ángel García Gómez, and I work in Salenda as a senior developer and an engineer, software engineer, and I work with Groovy, Rails a lot of years ago, and so other technologies such as Angular, Docker, and so on. If you don't know Salenda, you probably know us, but if you don't know us, you have a stand in the corridor, so you can check. This is the agenda, more or less. I'm going to talk about how can be measured, because we want to measure the performance about Micronaut, what has been measured, a comparison with some other frameworks, some conclusions, and if we have time, some questions. First of all, probably you know this, although you are not a big fan of Formula One, you know this sentence that is Fernando is faster than you. And now we want to check if Micronaut is faster than you, but faster than what? Than Spring Boot, Vertex, and maybe other frameworks. So first of all, how can be measured? These are the tools that I've used to measure the metrics. One is Micrometer. It's a platform-independent metric applications. It's for applications based on the JVM. And another one is Prometheus. That is a tool that allows us to monitor, querying, and to show the results in a dashboard and with graphs. What about Micrometer in Micronaut? It's so simple. You only have to put these two dependencies in the build.gradle and this configuration in the application.yaml. And about Prometheus, so simple. Again, this dependency, and in the application.yaml, you need to put these configurations, and thanks to James Clee that said to me that if you don't put this, it doesn't work. So because all the endpoints in Micronaut are sensitive by default, so you need to disable to Prometheus. The metrics, what has been measured. First of all, run-up time, memory consumption, the number of loaded classes, daemon threads, and some custom methods that will evaluate the execution time. Go to the comparison. What frameworks has been compared? First, Micronaut in the almost the last version, Spring Boot in the last stable version, Vertex the same, and Micronaut with Graal with the last versions. My idea in this talk was to measure all the metrics with Micrometer and Prometheus, but I have to say that it's partially support with Micronaut and Graal, and until yesterday I've been trying to run both things with Micronaut and Graal, but I cannot make it work, so sorry, because some metrics has been measured manually. This is the benchmark environment. is an Intel Core i5 with 8 gigabytes of RAM and SSD drive. Let's go with the first graph, run-up time. Here you have the results, and in this side you will have the rank of the frameworks, and the framework that will have the best performance will be ranked with a star. And as you can see, talking about run-up time, Micronaut plus GRAL is the best option. This has been taken over 100 startups, so this is the average time. As I said before, Micronaut and GRAL VM has the best results. What about memory footprint? This screenshot is taken directly from the Prometheus, and as I said before, the Prometheus endpoint only works with Spring Boot, Micronaut, and Vertex. My intention was to include here Micronaut plus GRAL, but as I mentioned earlier, it cannot work. So here you can see that about memory consumption, the best performance is about Vertex. This graph has been taken during the execution of the benchmark. So later I will explain how I measure this execution time. But as you can see, the memory consumption grow more or less the same, but the best figure is about Vertex. This has, as I mentioned earlier, this has been taken manually, not with Prometheus. And here I compare the four options: Micronaut, Spring Boot, Vertex, and Micronaut plus GRAL. And as you can see about memory consumption, this parameter, maximum resident set size, once again, Micronaut plus GRAL VM has the best performance. More or less the same about Micronaut and Vertex, and the worst is Spring Boot. Loaded classes. This has been taken again with Prometheus, and you can see that talking about the number of classes that has been loaded, Vertex has the best figure in this case. Daemon threads. This is very curious because in this case Micronaut has the best rank, but in some moment Vertex has a very big peak and has a lot of daemon threads. And this is the final benchmark. Is about some custom methods that I created in all of the frameworks. I've put the same methods that has the same results. The first one is some micro benchmarks, is a typical Fibonacci method. In this case, it's a recursive method, and it gets the first 40 numbers of the Fibonacci. The second one is to transform a wave file to MP3 using an external library. So with this endpoint, we can check how in these frameworks behavior using third-party libraries. And the last one was making an HTTP request to an endpoint. In this case, this endpoint, with this endpoint, you can get the name of asteroids. And the same HTTP request, but with a reactive way. And here are the results. With Fibonacci, in this case, Spring Boot has the best figure, but more or less the Micronaut, Spring Boot, and Vertex has the same value. That is surprising to me is Micronaut plus Graal has a worse performance. About Wave to MP3 is more or less the same as before. Spring Boot has the best result, but more or less the same about Micronaut, Spring Boot, and Vertex. But Micronaut plus Graal, once again, has the worst result. But what about an HTTP request? This HTTP request has been made with a client that connects to the API, get the result, and present in the if you done a curl command or something like that. And in this case, Micronaut plus Graal has the best result. It's true that the figures are more or less similar, but Micronaut plus Graal has the best performance. And in the reactive way, once again, Micronaut plus Graal has the best results. In this case, it's almost the same figures for the four frameworks, but it's true that this has Micronaut plus Graal has the best result. It's important to mention that this has been checked with JDK 8, and I made a script that send a request to the endpoint, to the first endpoint with Micronaut, to the second one about Spring Boot, and so on, with an elapsed time of 2 seconds, and this has been repeated 100 times. So that's all. Now I will show some conclusions about this. As you can see, all the three frameworks has its advantages and its downsides. Probably all depends on the use case, so keep in mind this. Talking about GraalVM, to be frank, I only try in Micronaut because it has a great integration with GraalVM. What about Vertex and Spring Boot? Vertex has more or less some integration with GraalVM, but you need to change something in the core. So for me, it's too complex. And what about the Spring Boot? I think that we have seen in the talk about GraalVM of my workmate Alberto that if you use reflection, you don't have the advantages and the integration with GraalVM. So Spring Boot have a lot of work to do. And another important part to mention is this topic, this trendy topic about developer experience. And I strongly believe that Micronaut wins in this case because now if we have time, I showed you a little piece of code that is written in Micronaut. Okay, this is, sorry, no, this is about vertex. And this is the way that you create a client, in this case, the reactive client in Vertex. And this is the way you use this client. As you can see, you have to put many lines. You need to convert the response into a JSON object. This JSON object needs to be converted manually, all the attributes. So for me, it's a nightmare, and I will show you the same endpoint with Micronaut. Sorry. Here you have the client. This is the high-level client with the annotation client, and you only have to put the get annotation. And if you want to create a reactive version, you put this flowable as a result. And if you want the not reactive, you can return a list. This is the only two things that you need to put in the client, and to use it, this is the controller that uses the reactive version. So in this case, I used this blocking iterable to get the whole response. But as you can see, the only thing that you need is to call this asteroid client fetch asteroids, and the same, more or less the same, with the version, with the traditional version. You receive the result about the client in the non-reactive version with an iterable, and you iterate over it. And sorry. So, as I mentioned earlier, for me, the developer experience has a great value in Micronaut. And probably you are saying you have tried these endpoints or this with your own work and with your own methods. If you want to have a full benchmark, not only about these 3 frameworks, in this website you can see benchmarks about a lot of frameworks, about Java, .NET, and so on. So you can compare, and yes, Micronaut is included in this. So to conclude, the last year I've been in this conference, and I made talk about Java melody. And I conclude with the same conclusion, that if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. It's a quotation by Lord Kelvin, but it's so important that if you want to improve something and if you want to measure something, you need to measure it. That's all. This is the repository in Bitbucket, in GitHub. If you have time to have a look, you can improve, because my intention was to create more metrics, more to measure more frameworks, and create a full benchmark. And please be kind and let me know what do you think about this talk and about myself. You can go to this QR code. So thank you. If you have any question.
Yeah, sometimes the differences in performance are more clear with higher volumes.
Mm-hmm.
So did you try something like instead of 100 iterations, 1,000 or 10,000, so it's more clear the degradation of some of the frameworks?
I didn't try it because I didn't have time, as I mentioned earlier. I passed a lot of time configuring all the environment, working with Micronaut and Grail, even know it. And I need to say thank you to all the Micronaut staff and to all of my workmates, because it helped me a lot with this environment. And the next step is to try, even with, not only with 1,000 requests, even separating in isolated machines and so on. I think that this needs to be improved.
Okay. It's lunchtime now, so you can talk with him if you want later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.